Has anyone actually changed the way they think? I always see these motivational mantras like only you can control your thoughts, implying that you can change negative thoughts into positive ones. But it just seems like a load of bullshit, a cliché thing to say. Has anyone actually had success in this? How? I just don't even know where to begin. It seems impossible. My thoughts are at the mercy of my emotions, and I don't see any way to untie them from each other. I hate how much of a pessimist I am sometimes, and I'd love to change it, but being told to just change my thoughts is unhelpful. What can I do?
Be aware that you're thinking, and then you can start to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. This can be done by practicing mindfulness and meditations. You'll gain the ability to identify when your mind wanders and starts thinking, so you can snap out of it and get back to the present moment. A simple trick to be mindful is to ask yourself 2 questions. Where am I? What am I doing? This will shift your mind from thinking mode to sensing mode, and the present moment reality is tied to our senses. As an example, right now you're just staring at an object in front of you. Once you get accustomed to the difference between thinking and sensing, it will become easier to deny negative thoughts and to consciously choose to fill your mind with positivity, hope, and optimism.
I'd suggest as well to write out common negative thoughts that you have, and then make a list of all the reasons why it's actually not true, and a new thought you can try to think instead. So when it pops up again, you can take the moment to be like, no, that's not true, and this is why. And I'm actually really good at X. It helps a lot, then your brain doesn't have to think too hard in the moment if you've already got a script prepared.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks to therapy. It goes faster than you can imagine too, once you are ready to open up and let go. Still not easy, but it can go really fast if you're willing, because once you start poking at one thing, your entire house of cards wants to come down. At that point, it's a matter of bringing it down slow enough so you can cope while dismantling it. Anyway, don't try to control your thoughts. Let them be. Observe them. Realize that they have no impact on this current moment, and that just because you had a bad thought, it doesn't mean you right now feel bad. It just means you considered a bad thought, but that thought doesn't need to dictate how you actually feel about yourself right now. If they're persistent and keep coming back after you think you let them go, then stop trying to avoid them and sit down and experience them fully. Letting yourself think and feel through their entire implications, and wait. And practice self-compassion while doing so. Sometimes the only way to get rid of them is to allow yourself to feel them fully, in all their horror.
Hey, so I don't have specific advice for you, but I've managed to regain control over my mind and emotions over these past 2 years. I put it down to good interpersonal relationships, and those relationships that weren't doing me any good, despite living with one of them, I've simply stopped caring for and focused on how my actions and interactions with them can help protect and serve me better. Allowing yourself to feel something is different to letting it consume you, and for a long time, my emotions would quickly and easily consume me. It took me a long period of emotional resistance training before I became comfortable letting an emotion in to process it without it becoming my entire existence. Journaling, for integration and self-validation, and singing, for venting without needing someone, and running, for feel-good chemicals and a reason to move my body, and eating well are also factors that have all contributed to my overall success. And fuck, if there still aren't moments of complete senseless emotion, but seeing it as a funny thing, life's great comedic game, has helped a lot too. I hope you know that your dark thoughts only have the power you give them. Cut them off by offering them less of your attention and mental oxygen. Find a reason or a focus to send love and light to, and as an extension, you'll be sending yourself that love and light. Good luck.
I changed my negative thoughts massively, and so can you. It sounds trite and cliché, but I started meditating. I was as pessimistic and dubious at the start as you. But learning to see your thoughts as just that, thoughts. And learning to not identify with them is a game changer. I wrote a very short tips to get started with meditation. If you're interested, reach out and I'll send you the link. Reach out to me if you are interested in starting. I'm happy to help out. It's not an overnight fix. Nothing is. But it has done wonders for me.
Yes. But my opinion is that it has to make sense in your head first. For me, any quote or idea of a motivational speaker made sense at a certain point in life during something I was experiencing. It was like a revelation. So, don't worry if the ideas don't click right away. At some point you will understand what the guy wanted to say. X, a bad thing could lead to something good. Let's say you have a flat tire that ruins your whole day. But at the service you meet a nice girl with a flat tire and somehow you end up having a great relationship with this girl. This bad event changed your whole life for the better. I experienced this. Once you figure out this, you might even get excited whenever something happens that takes you off your path. Oh, had a car accident. I wonder where this ship will take me? Does this make any sense?
Your mantra isn't true. I have severe OCD. Even with people who don't have OCD, you cannot always control every thought. Sometimes they're intrusive. Sometimes change is vague. Oftentimes it matters more how you react to your thoughts. Mainly acceptance. Accepting, or coming to peace with, whatever anxiety or fear your mind brings up. Not agreeing with it, but finding acceptance on it. Cognition, emotion, and behavior are connected. It's a large part of our BT, which includes philosophies such as Stoicism.
I had therapy which helped, but the way I did it was to recognize the bad thoughts as they come up and not just accept them and let them make me feel worse. I challenged them, and sometimes now brain does it all on its own. It's amazing. One of my issues was I was really horrible to myself all the time, and I would say stuff to myself that I would never say to others and just accept the nasty things I was saying. And those thoughts still come. I just find it easier to reject them or sometimes argue them down now. It is possible.
Many people, myself included. My psychologist has helped a lot. Since they're the expert in how the mind works, how I see it. Some questions I now ask myself: why do I complete this behavior? What is the result of it? Am I happy with it? Content? Do I want to change it? What are my fears? Why? As in, what is the worst thing to happen if my worst fear came to be? Also, something I've done myself over time, 2 to 4 years, is encourage myself and remind myself that it's wrong to be so down on myself. I used to get so upset with myself when I was lazy or didn't get schoolwork done or housework or spend too much on food, etc. If I'm not nice to myself in my own head, how do I expect to change? The world is a crazy place. I can at least be nice to myself. Another thing that has helped me is looking into healthy/unhealthy behaviors and learning what's not unhealthy, even toxic. It can help yourself looking within, but also help to recognize it through others.
Used to be depressed for multiple years during adolescence. One day I became aware of my destructive thoughts just sitting on the bus. I heard the voice in my head trashing myself all the time. Before that moment it happened in the background, unconsciously. It took many more years to get rid of this habit, but I did change the way I think in my life. Be aware of what you think and how you think, and know that not all your thoughts are worthwhile nor true. Catch yourself in the act and condemn your negative thinking. It's hard at first, but quickly becomes a relief. Never give up.
You can change your thought patterns, but they take some time and effort. It seems that most thoughts bubble up from the unconscious/subconscious. Some will make a distinction, but for all intents and purposes it's basically like a black box you don't get to typically interact with since it is hiding behind a veil. With mindfulness you can take space between thoughts. The space creates a gap and also gives an opportunity or window to redirect thought patterns. Additionally, meditation, therapy, and some psychological activities bring out latent emotional content from the black box unconscious/subconscious, which gives a chance that when now held consciously can be reprocessed or dealt with in a more acceptable and healthier pattern. That is not to say that mindfulness or psychotherapy is a magic silver bullet per se, but there is truth to the fact that you are not your thoughts. By stopping the habitual conditioned thought patterns of the mind, you can now work with them in a way that is healthy and more constructive. Of course, some thoughts and habit patterns were formed over years, so they take more time. I actually think instead of listening to the traditional self-improvement mantras are not good, since you usually model after someone else's thinking and mindset as opposed to directly looking at one's own mind. The key is to look at one's own mind and plant the new thinking patterns to the subconscious like a seed for it to grow.
I have. It takes a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, and practice. I honestly don't even recognize the unhappy person I used to be. It's hard work to shift your mind and find a way to balance thoughts and emotions, but so worth it. I don't know if this will help you understand it, but your thoughts are just that, thoughts. They exist only inside your head, and you can control how loud they are and what they say. You just gotta learn how. There are free 10-minute guided meditations to help you be more aware with breathing techniques on YouTube. I highly recommend, honest guys. It'll take a few tries to get the hang of it, but it'll start making sense to you. It is hard work getting to the shifting point. Good luck.
The way you think is due to your brain circuits. And each time you think that way, you reinforce those circuits. To change the way you think, you need to force yourself to think differently, many, many times, until those new circuits become more dominant than the old ones. At that point, when they're automatic, they will self-reinforce. A good analogy is that of a mound of sand. When you pour water on top, it will flow down in grooves. Once a groove is established, new water will only dig deeper into it. It takes conscious effort to redirect it through a different path, and a lot of time for that new path to become deeper than the old ones.
Start by changing one belief at a time, I'd say. I'll give my own example here. I used to think I was lazy and a pathetic loser. But when life finally hit me, I decided I wanted to be different. I started by instilling the belief that I'm a hustler and hard-working person. It's not easy to break out of bad habits. Once you start doing that, you start challenging preconceived notions and realize that it comes down to a choice of being or not being a certain way in most cases. I used to be kinda careless about my appearance too. Then the acne phase started. I wasn't as young, so if I didn't take care of my skin and appearance in general, it would keep deteriorating. It was hard to start with taking care of myself, fixing the diet and skincare routine. These are little ways, but I also made a lot of changes to my life which had a dramatic impact on me, and turned my life over for the better.
You are what you repeatedly do. I had a lot of work to do becoming a person who genuinely cared about people. What I did. I practiced. Every chance I got to show someone I cared about them, I did. You feel like an imposter at first. You feel like it's not who you are. Well, no duh. It's not you, but it's who you want to be. Over time, what felt like an act became a routine, and what felt like a routine became who I am.
Yes, I have. First was after I went through a traumatic experience. It changed everything about everything. I was 15 at the time. I'm now 32, and since about the age of 25, fully developed, I've become increasingly aware of how I think. Every day I make a conscious decision/effort to change the thought processes I don't like. For example, I have noticed that at times when I'm feeling pessimistic, say I am thinking negatively about other people or the world/society, I catch myself and say, wait, why am I thinking about this like this? I'm wasting my time and energy. I even tell myself, so you want to get to age 80 and realize you've wasted all that time thinking about that, like that. And I consciously make the effort to change what I'm thinking about. Plus, emotions are not thoughts. I like to picture my emotions in my chest and my thoughts in mind. So they're physically separated. In my mind, when I feel an emotion such as sadness, I like to flex my logic. I'll remind myself that my emotions are separate and more physical, and that it's not reality, as reality is what is right in front of me. It's okay to be emotional sometimes, but really your mind can be an extremely strong muscle if you work on it. This is why people love affirmations and such. When somebody says, only you can, what they're really saying is awareness can. Become aware of the processes within yourself and actively try to change what you don't like.
Play devil's advocate with your thoughts. Realize your first initial thoughts are usually emotional and lack some clarity and are usually biased in some way. Like if someone cuts you off driving. Emotions take over and you think they are the worst person and want to respond in anger. This is emotions talking that it's almost impossible to control this initial emotion, but you can control your next thoughts. Like maybe they are super late for something important, maybe they just didn't see you. Have you never cut anyone off accidentally? Once my thoughts reach this point, my anger is almost all gone. Make sure you control your thoughts. You will always find what you're looking for. Look for problems, you will find them. Usually the same can be said for solutions as well.
Hey OP. My research deals with propaganda and rhetoric, more from the historical persuasion side versus psychology of internal change. But for what it's worth, it is absolutely possible, of course, to change the way you think, or to persuade others to think differently. And it's equally true that our brains tend to default to a rigid, "don't tell me what to do" mode when we are confronted with change and or the intellectual unknown. Cognitive dissonance is no joke, and it can keep us stuck in an unhelpful default mode if we don't nudge our brains out of the rut. So how do we get past brain pitfalls and avoid intellectual/emotional entrenchment? This is a generality, but the key trick to outsmarting yourself is to learn how to break problems down, aka making change, into small steps. The most successful people and propagandists I've tracked are good at making their goals smaller, even when their purpose/objective is large. To that point, motivational mantras don't do much for me either, and my eyes usually start to roll by chapter 2 of any self-help book that I've had to slog through. But one contemporary book on thinking that I do like is Switch: How to Change Things When Change is Hard by Dan and Chip Heath. I suspect you might also appreciate it, and you will probably be able to identify with their elephant, emotion, and rider, logic, analogy on how our brains work. They have some good insight on the research to move the elephant, and the info is delivered in a very readable way and without a lot of fluff. Good luck to you.
Here's the thing. Motivational posters aren't really about changing who you are. They're about reminding you of something. Generally, the people that read those and get something out of it are people that are already on that path to begin with. I.e., the motivational poster telling you to be happy isn't for people who are depressed. It's for people who are happy, but having a bad day. Changing the way you are/the way you think about things is a long process that requires you to be somewhat dedicated. Over the last 3 years or so, I've gone from being a major pessimist to being largely optimistic. It all started with my therapist telling me to start every day by looking in the mirror and finding something positive to say about myself. It was something that changed the way I look at myself fundamentally, but it took the better part of a year to happen, and I didn't notice it at all as it was happening. It's only when I take a step back and see how happy/confident I am now compared to a year/2 years ago that I really see the benefits. Change takes a long time and a lot of effort. Motivational posters help us to remember our journey, but they aren't going to completely change you. I like to see them as more like mile markers during a road trip. You can see how far you've come, but they don't necessarily change your direction.
Definitely. It was basically just a matter of increasing my awareness of my own thoughts and emotions. Writing was extremely helpful when it came to this. Sometimes deeply ingrained beliefs, when written on paper, can make you stop for even just a second and realize how delusional some of them may be. I read about the mindsets of different people, got into philosophy, mainly Stoicism, and eventually all that input allowed for positive mental change. The most important thing is breaking cycles. They keep our life in order, but some cycles may be affecting you negatively, and you may not even realize it. Same actions equals same results. You have to try something different. You must push yourself. Step out of your comfort zone. Do things that challenge your negative beliefs over and over. If you want your mindset to change, you have to change the way you live as well. An example: when person fails, they stop pursuing the activity that they failed in, and it feeds into their belief that they are incapable and inadequate. How do you break that cycle? Emotions are hard to change, but it can be the other way around. Environment/actions changing your mental state/emotions. vice versa. So, instead of mulling over how hard it is to change how you feel, continue to pursue said activity and give it your all despite your feelings. Even if you feel like shit while doing it, you have successfully broken the cycle. Eventually, through consistent pursuit of that activity and consistent effort, positive results will inevitably come and break that belief of their inadequacy. That single moment where their beliefs are proven wrong, they realize that they are capable of achieving, is enough to at least make a crack in the foundation of their negative mindset. With enough positive feedback and breaking of the cycle/S, that negative mindset will break with a more positive one replacing it. We believe many things about ourselves, mostly negative things, and we perform poorly because of that, thus feeding our beliefs and confirming them. The moment when we break the cycle through the sheer desire of wanting to change, we completely invalidate those negative beliefs and they start to fade. More examples. You think you can't make friends? Even if you don't feel confident, even if it's not the perfect or right day to do it, start putting yourself out there. Break your own expectations and your mindset will begin to change as well. You think you can't do well in school? Fuck it. Throw everything you've got even if that feeling of incapability lurks within you at every moment, because one step of effort above what you usually do is enough for you to see your potential. Even if you fail, you have proven to yourself that you are capable of doing things outside and despite your negative mindset. That realization in itself is powerful enough to elicit more change. You realize that while you are weighed down by these thoughts, you are never chained. I'll say it again, if you want things to change, you have to do different things plus consistency. Break your own expectations and do things you never would have thought you could. When your mind tells you that you shouldn't try, you try out of spite. When it tells you that you are not enough, you pursue your goals anyway. Do the opposite of your negative beliefs. Be more aware of the validity of each one. Is it a definite truth, or is it a result of past experiences? Like exercise, resistance is key. Move against the flow those bad thoughts push you in. As long as you have the desire to change, that itself is enough. Edit. Just an additional note. I like to do what I call a reset. Cut out toxic friends. Doesn't matter if you have known them for years. I cut someone I knew for 7 a few months ago and my mindset is infinitely better. Deep clean your physical environment too. Start having better hygiene and take care of your health. You don't need to go all out at first. Even a few extra cups of water and a piece of fruit in the morning is good. I hated hearing it in the past, but your physical state can definitely affect your mental health. It also gives you the energy necessary to make changes.
TLDR, it's possible. I did it, you can do it. Understand who you want to be and believe that as your identity. Engage in habits that are applicable to your identity. Journaling helps you be more mindful and intentional with behaviors. It helps you understand your emotions and behaviors and make necessary actions. I would say that it's definitely possible. But I used to believe it wasn't possible, that it BS and cliché as well. I recently read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear that helped me realize how important my everyday habits were to the overall happiness and well-being of my life. But the more important part of the book is at the beginning where he explains how you view yourself or how you view your identity is what determines your habits. For example, he explains how a person trying to quit smoking should say, "No thanks, I don't smoke," instead of, "I'm trying to quit." Simply believing in your best version of yourself as your identity helped me achieve a better lifestyle. The most important parts of life were improved after reading this book. I stick to a consistent sleep schedule. I exercise consistently, and I eat a lot healthier and more mindfully. This book is about building habits, but this part about identity is what helped me the most. You bring up an interesting point of how your thoughts are at the mercy of your emotions. This was very true for me as well. Every time I tried to start a new habit like eating healthier or working out more, I would let my emotions decide whether I continue that habit or not. If I am angry or sad about something, I would have something sweet/unhealthy, and I would justify it by saying it would cheer me up even though it only did for a couple of seconds. But after understanding that I am a healthy and mindful eater, I realize that a cookie or donut is not going to cheer me up, it's only going to contribute negatively to my health. I know that a workout always gets my energy up, so instead I go exercise. A habit that was extremely helpful for me was journaling. I didn't believe it was for me at first, but journaling can be whatever you need it to be. For me, I just wrote down what I did that day and determined whether it contributed positively or negatively to my life, and what my identity is. Whatever I determined to be negative or not a part of who I am, I discontinued. For example, if I scarfed down a box of cookies, that I considered negative. If I only ate one cookie after a meal, I considered that neutral. Journaling helped me be more mindful and intentional with my behaviors. Realizing how much time I spent scrolling through my phone without receiving any joy from it made me realize that it's not something that makes me happy, so I stopped.
It's not about no longer having negative thoughts, but noticing that it is a negative thought, which is out of your control, and realizing you have the power to believe something different than what your brain is feeding to your consciousness. Realizing what thoughts are is important too. The brain collects data from your entire life experience and produces thoughts from them relating to more recent data and even the present moment. You are the observer of this supercomputer known as the brain and the new data, thoughts, it's giving you. The thoughts will come depending on your emotions likely, but I think noticing that the feeling you're experiencing is sparking the thoughts and not vice versa is important, which means the thoughts aren't necessarily true, but rather the brain looking for a reason for the discomfort so it can protect itself and so you can feel better. Sometimes, of course, the negative feelings will come from the thoughts or experiences you're in, but the spiral that comes after may be important to pay attention to, and if truth really is behind it or if it's being colored by your life experiences or any trauma you've experienced. Meditation is helpful, or any practice at observing the thought, allowing it to be there but not getting caught up in and having something, preferably the present moment, to return your attention to while the thought is there. It takes practice, but with everyday practice it can be done.
This reply is kind of the opposite, in that I joined Reddit despite hearing about the toxic troll culture. I thought I could rise above, be the better person and not stoop to the trolls, and respond to them kindly like I would to anyone in real life. Boy, was I ever wrong. Within weeks, I'm getting mad and threatening to strangle people, murder them, and all kind of obscene, horrendous things I would never do or say in real life. I don't mean it though. I'm just a very emotional person, and take everything more personally than I probably should, especially on the internet. So yes, I changed my thinking, but in a negative way. At least I'm not lying to myself as much, I guess. The more I accept myself and see what I am, the better I feel, so I consider that self-improvement. Also, I could be lying to myself. Damn it.
I used to be quite shy until I started self-improvement years ago. I faked it till I made it, you could say. I would just think positive things even if I didn't confidently believe them at the time. Now, these thoughts come as natural and I actually believe them. It has enabled me to self-motivate me and hype me up quite easily, so to say. Only negative thing I find with how I changed my thoughts is that it kind of suppresses the unsecureness. It doesn't eradicate it. So even though I act confident naturally all the time, I might still sometimes not feel confident, but it is hard for me to listen to that emotion, and with that learn from it, where it comes from, because I am used to pushing those emotions away and creating thoughts of motivation and self-confidence. It is hard to explain, I hope you understand me.